right. So we have Ben here, and Ben is literally, in my eyes, probably the most happy human being on this planet. I think if there was a contest on the planet of the happiest people, you would probably be one of the top guys. And now, just before pushing the record button, we were chatting about how excellent you are at certain things. And I would like you to brag about yourself a little bit.
Uh, well, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Um, well, we were talking about personal training, and the truth is, again, I used to train trainers, right? So trainers, I would regular because we had a personal training studio. So trainers who trained other people. I've trained so many trainers over the years, and I trained trainers who trained other trainers. So I'm like, I just feel like I'm there's nobody on this planet better than me at what I do as far as personal training. But that's not really my thing for physical training anymore. Like I will do it because people will reach out to me and and like I said, like I was telling you, somebody a friend and an old client of mine, her husband had a heart attack. So it's like he had a pacemaker put in and kind of worried about that. So it's like, okay, you know what? I got, don't worry about it. We'll get you in shape. So 12 12 or it wasn't 12 weeks, it was probably well 7 weeks later, it's like, wow, I got my strength back. I know how to do, I know I'm doing, I feel confident and back on, there we go. And so so again, people will reach out to me for guidance because I don't know, I just feel like I'm the best.
You are the best, obviously. I mean, if you it's so natural to you. And you say, you train trainers who train trainers who train trainers. This sounds like the coaching industry in general. Like coaches
Yeah,
who
yeah,
coach coaches who coach coaches who coach coaches who coach coaches. My
yeah.
even my tongue doesn't work properly to say it. And it's like I love how you just own it. It's like, I know that I'm excellent at it. I've seen too much evidence that it works. I do it very simply. It's like people just take it and go and change their lives and become fit and healthy and amazing and they love life. And I mean, I love your attitude.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's just, I mean, everybody has their thing, right? And that's one of my things. Is just, I don't know. I just understand it. I've been mentored. I've been doing it since I was a kid. I loved it. I was like, all I wanted to do was learn about it and read about it and study it and try it, see what was working on my body. So I mean, I've been doing that since I was 15 years old. Even before that, I was like, I have my little journal out. I go for my runs and like what's working, what's making me faster, what's not, what do I need to try? I was always really trying to get to the bottom of understanding how my body worked and learning from people and seeing what would work for other people. What, like, how come I'm progressing and they're not? So I was always a student of it. I would write on all my calories and am I getting stronger? Am I getting weaker? And I did this for years. So that, and then I started training people in the gym, just $5 an hour working in the gym. That's what you made. There wasn't personal trainers back in 1986. There, you just worked in the gym, and that's what I did. And I trained people. So that was my job as a kid, a teenager, just training people, right? So I learned from a very young age just about what works for people, how to guide people, and understanding that it's not what I know, it's what they're ready to receive, because that's the most important thing for anybody who's teaching anybody anything. Is it's not what you know, it's what they're ready to receive. So that I think is what makes me a really good trainer, is that because I used to stand outside our personal training studio and I would say, people would walk by and I would say, hey, how's it going? What's going on? What do are you from around here? And I would go through my little checklist, oh, you're from around here? Oh, yeah. What do you do for fitness? Oh, like, how's that working for you? Let me show you something. Almost no matter what they said, I get them in the gym and I would show them something because I was so confident. Like, oh, you got a bad back? Let me show you something. Oh, you're not losing weight? Let me show you something that might help you. Oh, your knees are no good. Here, you got to make this adjustment, and 100% of the time, they'd be like, "Wow, that's amazing." And I probably had a 90% or 80 or 90% No, actually, well, I worked it out. It was like about a 95% retention. Like I would give people like come for a free workout with me, and then just take away the knowledge or join with me. And I think it was like about a 95% retention. Like if I can get somebody in for a half hour workout with me, they buy something from me. They buy workouts from me
That's
because
genius.
it doesn't, because I'm so, again, I learned so much that it doesn't matter what I know. It matters what they're able to assimilate. And that's with everything, whether it's your happiness, whether it's your relationship, everything is, it doesn't matter what, you can have all the education, because you and I have talked about that before. My mom was a psych professor, so she had all the information, but she couldn't even apply it on herself, right?
Oh my
So
God, so many people, so many
ah,
clients are exactly like that. They're super smart, super intelligent, straight A's back in high school and college and university, all that great stuff, so many accomplishments down their sleeves, and then when it comes to happiness, when it comes to actually really feeling good, when it comes to really squeezing the most out of life, it's like, yeah, like everything is in the mind, but not much is in the heart. And I think it's a genius way that you're approaching your clients. Like you said, it's not just with the physical, training, it's also with the mind, that you're adjusting and customizing and personalizing what people actually need. Because if you're just going to give one size fits all type of approach, then it's not really going to work, because for someone, maybe they need the very basics, and someone else, maybe they need something very much advanced. And you being able to kind of adjust and be flexible and all of that, I think is genius. And actually it reminded me, I think it's a great segue into your beautiful guide that you designed and created recently. And I was going through it and I saw some images of you shirtless with your muscles all over, like, and I was like, that's also a very, very good advertisement for people who actually want to work on their bodies and their minds, honestly, because in order to create the end result, whether that's a great looking body, healthy body, whether that's a successful business, whether that's a healthy relationship, it's not just about the habit. It's not just about going to the gym. It's not just about lifting the weight. It's also about the willpower. It's about the mindset. It's about how badly do you really want that. And so I would love to speak a little bit more about the guide and what you created there.
yeah, just going back a little bit about, just like I said, the images or whatever. It's like it makes me crazy. Like I said, kind of going back to what I said about my mom, that so many people are trying to help people, and it's super admirable that people are trying to help people in, their mental wellness or whatever it is they're doing. But if you're not living it, if you're not a representation of what you're guiding people to do, there's a problem. There's a bit of a problem, in my opinion. Like if you're, I know a ton of people who are like, oh, these are the things that you need to do, but yet they're angry, they're upset, they're yelling at their wives and this and that. It's like, you're a walking representation of what you're teaching. And as you teach, you should be learning. And as you're learning, you should be teaching. So it should be this dance between like guiding and more knowledge, and guiding and more knowledge, and understanding how to reach people, and it should be this dance, right? So you should always be a representation of what you are learning and teaching and living. And so when I
I
put
just
this,
I'm just smiling as you're speaking, because I feel like, as always, we are so on the same page, because I constantly talk about being the leader by example.
yeah,
That's what it's all about. Like, how can you be a credible guide, leader, coach, teacher, whoever, if you don't embody what you're talking about, what you're preaching? Like, it doesn't
exactly.
work.
No, it doesn't work. And again, like you're all about redefining success, right? But redefining success, like the way I see it and the way I feel like I get your teaching from is, it's all about embodying who you're going to be, and that expresses itself as success in the world, right? Because you're embodying it and you're living it and you're teaching it and you're experiencing it, right? So it's this whole big circle that is just it's beautiful, right? It's the way it's supposed to be. You redefine success by redefining it within yourself. This is the way I take it anyways. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is you embody it within yourself. So you redefine success, what success is for you, which is happiness and joy and passion and fulfillment or whatever, and then you can express that in the world, and it just becomes circular, right? Then you experience more of that, and you can express more of it, and you receive more of it, and you give more of it, and it's a circular thing, right? And that's kind of what I think all really good teachers are able to do, right?
And
It's
that's
just
why you
circular.
put all these beautiful pictures in your guide.
Well, yeah, the journal is, like I say, the journal. I mean, as you know, you kind of went through it, and it's super tight. It's not a lot to it, but again, it doesn't really, like, I don't need to sit there. I've written like tons and tons and thousands of words, but that's not really important. What's important is, am I able to express a concept that's going to resonate with somebody, that's going to impact their life? So that's what the Everyday Guy Journal was about. It was like, I went through all the podcasts that Willow and I had done, 80 Love and Goliath podcasts. I went through it, like, and I went through it word for word. And I said, okay, what are the most impactful lessons I could take? And then obviously, I mean, you went through the journal. You saw me with my, like, I just took a photo of a stack of some of my journals, and and I mean, that's just like not just a fraction of the journals I've done. So I've done all this digging for information, asking myself questions, like trying to find answers, and it all kind of, I put it all together. Not everything I knew, but I tried to condense the most important lessons I could to help somebody quickly and easily start to move in a in towards a path, or along a path that would guide them to more self-assurance, ease, happiness, less stress, and just like, whoo, I got this, I got this, I got life. It's not so bad. Oh, I'm excited about life now. Now I'm looking forward to getting up in the morning and doing my thing and moving and doing this and doing that. I mean, I just really wanted to give some people, everybody, a simple guide. So you don't need to be a great reader. You don't have to be anything. All you have to be, you just need a basic knowledge of reading to be able to get through the journal, and then you can click on the QR codes and listen to the podcast. And to me, the most important thing about the journal is to do the journal prompts, right? Because that's how you
Mm.
figure out the answers for yourself. I mean, that's what I had
What
to
I
do, right?
what I really love about the journal is that you also illustrate each point, each exercise with your own perspective, your own experience. And how many steps are there? Like 25 or something like that?
Well, the everyday that journal has 27 chapters, I think. Yeah, so it's
27.
27,
Okay.
right? But as you know, it's very simple. It's like, take somebody, like, if you're hopeless, all the way up to just kind of enjoying the journey of life. The last one is just the journey of life, just enjoy your life, right? So
Yeah.
hopefully within those 27 chapters, which are very tight, right? You'll kind of, if you put all those things into practice, you should, by the end of it, like, start to feel like, yeah, you know what, life is a journey. It should be fun, it should be easy, I should be enjoying it. Yeah, let's get on with this. I can do it, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that it's applicable to people in different stages of their lives. And like I said, like for me, what's really, really awesome is that it's not just dry. It's not like, okay, this is the theory about what I want you to understand. This is what you do about it with some kind of, contemplation and journaling and thinking about it. And this is my story. That's where the juice is, where people can actually relate to your story, relate to what you've been through, relate to how you think, because you've been through a lot in your own life and you came from very tough environments and upbringing, and it's been a roller coaster. to say the least, for you to come to where you are today, as in my humble opinion, one of the happiest people on this planet. So tell us a little bit more about why you have the authority to speak about all of this. Like, as we spoke a little bit earlier, why are you the leader by example in this case to actually teach others and help others to live a happy life?
Well, the truth is, I mean, the journal is, I mean, every chapter I talked about, and again, this is just 1.0, right? Because I want to expand on it. But this was like to give anybody a guide to experience more joy. But it's like I'm telling you, like in the journal, I'm giving you the prompts for the Love and Goliath podcast where you can hear me talk about like, yeah, I've been sleeping on people's couches because I was arrested, kicked out of my home, and I had nowhere to go with all my stuff in the back of a car. I've been a drug addict. I've been like trying not to put a bullet in my head. I've been, broken in so many different ways. I've suffered. I've fallen, I've failed, I've done all these things, and I picked myself out of all that stuff one by one, and I fell again, I learned, and I had to pick myself up again. I fell, I learned, I picked myself up again, I fell. So everything I'm talking about is like, it's like, oh, you feel broken? I felt broken too. And this is what I learned. This is what I learned doesn't work. And this is what I learned does work. And then after training so many people and guiding so many people, I can see the consistency well enough to know that this will help you. I guarantee it. And same thing, whether it's, overcoming addiction or overcoming, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Any of the issues I've talked about in there, there's very few issues that somebody could talk about that I don't have some experience with in some way. Like, I mean, I've not been in war, but I felt like I was in war in like brutal nightclubs where my friends are getting their heads blown off in the nightclub. Like, I mean, where like, it's just craziness, right? So like, I mean, if Vancouver was in the 90s was practically like a war zone with the craziness with the drug dealing and the gang war going on. It was like it's crazy. So no, I haven't been in war, but I've been in that environment. I've been around chaos. I've been in a family where it's just like, are you kidding me? This this is chaos. Like, so I've been in all these different versions of the same stories that people go through, right? I've had my heart broken. I've had my child, taken from me and not know if I'd ever see her again. I've had all these things happen to me and I've found my way out of it. And so I could see the consistency of what it takes to get out of these situations. Um, and
You know
and
what
so I
I love about this is that I think a lot of people, when they look into personal development, like self-help books or courses, programs, any type of material, or they're looking into what coaches and mentors do, they're like, oh, it's not for me. I'm just a regular guy. I'm like, who am I to do this kind of work? And what I love about this journal is that you even call it the everyday guy, and for everyone, and everyone can benefit from it. Not just can, they will. And it's literally for absolutely anyone. The ones who have not done any inner work, any personal development work whatsoever, never worked with any coaches, never watched any YouTube videos on any of that kind of stuff. And for you, it's like, well, it's for everyone, it's for any guy. I love that.
yeah, I mean, I love it too. I mean, we had talked about the whole thing because in many ways I'm just an everyday guy, right? And in many ways, I'm pretty. My life has been pretty extraordinary. The circumstances have been pretty extraordinary and extreme. So it's like that balance, right? Like I come across again, I can relate to anybody, right? Because I'm just pretty chill or whatever. I am an everyday guy. Um, but again, I've been on this such extremes of these different situations. So it's a balancing act, but that's why we kind of named it that. It's like It's like, you know what? When I was in grade one, I had to go to special classes because I couldn't learn to read and I couldn't learn math. And then I was kicked out of the schools. And then I was like people were like, there's no way you're gonna graduate school, you know. So I'm not like some smarty pants, right? I had to struggle, you know. And I went to BCIT and I got my ticket. But the only reason I got my ticket was my journeyman ticket as a sheet metal worker was because relentlessly studying because I have a hard time with math, right? So I'm not a smarty pants like as far as like it like as far as that kind of stuff, right? But I done it. I've worked really hard, and and there is things that do come really easy to me, like training people, understanding people. Right? So again, I'm an everyday guy. I don't got all these plaques on my wall about my education, but I've lived more than pretty much anybody that you're gonna find with all those plaques, right? Like,
I love that you lived. You were kind of building like a life resume instead of building, I don't know, like work, job resume. You were building a life resume of all sorts of different experiences and relationships and, adventures and like breaking your heart and getting into fights and being a bouncer and addict and a boxer and so many different things. So I wonder when you were looking through the journal and you were preparing the journal, putting it together, when did you notice that was the tipping point when you actually started changing your life? So because all of those 27 chapters, they come probably from somewhat different stages of life and different
absolutely.
experiences and different practices that you learned like, oh my God, this was an epiphany about something. So I'm curious, when you look back, when was the time when you started working on yourself, when you started acquiring wisdom, when you started learning about yourself so that eventually years later you could put it into the journal?
When I first did, or when it really started to
Yeah.
come together for me.
When it first did, when you had the first insight that clicked something for you.
Well, the first real insight was when I was 15, right? And I think you and I have talked about that story when I got arrested for like literally hours, probably for less than 48 hours after finishing my community hours for stealing a purse. I got arrested again for breaking into a pub. And and it was like really
Such
quite
a bad boy.
I know, I know. Well, it wasn't that I was a bad boy. It's just I just had so much stuff going on in my life. Like I'm getting my head beaten every day. I don't have anywhere safe to go. I don't have any role models. And so who are my role models? They're the older kids who are smoking pot and getting drunk every day and doing acid. So these are my role models, and I want to impress them. And well, I'll go and steal the booze and I'll break into the pub. It's like that's where that's coming from. I didn't have any role models, so I wasn't a bad kid. I just like, where am I gonna go? Who believes in me? Who's gonna make me feel like I matter? Because I'm not getting this at home, right? I'm not getting this in my neighborhood. I have to go somewhere else. So that wasn't a bad kid. I was so desperate. So, but anyway, so I got taken to the police. I've told this story before, but I got taken to the police station, handcuffs, and an adjudicator told me, like, you know, that I just wasn't going to make it. I was going to be in jail. I wasn't going to live till I was 20, or because I was going down such a bad road. And so that was the first time I really understood, because I made a choice. I'm like, I can't do this. I got to lift weights, and I need to change my path. And that was the first time I really saw that the thing that I try to teach so many people, and again, I'll admit I fell many times throughout the years before I really understood, okay, never go back. But that was the first time I really understood the minute you have an idea about who you're going to be moving forward, it's a done deal. It's just a matter of you trusting it. It's just a matter of you trusting it. And that's why I always try to get people to find that self-assurance, ease, and faith within themselves, because then when you have that vision, you're like, I'm going to make my relationship better, or I'm going to have a relationship, or I'm going to make my work situation better, or whatever it is. You have that vision, you can settle into it until that gap between where you are and the vision of it closes, right? Because if you don't have that groundedness, it's really hard to hang on. You're kind of like, oh, it's not working for me. Oh, things are going wrong, and you're kind of all over the place like a twig on the ocean. But when you ground yourself, kind of like you said, redefining success, right? When you ground yourself in that feeling of like, you know what? I'm a good person. I know who I am. I have faith that if I just put in the work, I'm a hard worker, I'll get to where I want to go. Then you start to close the gap, right? So I understood at 15, the minute I made a choice, when I felt the weights, I was like, I can prove to the world that I'm not a piece of garbage that could be forgotten. Because again, I felt like like nobody cared, right? Like nobody was stopping, nobody was helping me out of my situation. So I felt like you know what? The weights will help me out of my situation. This is my path, right? So that was the first time I really understood that, like, even as a 15-year-old kid, not really getting things that much, like being really immature, I understood the vision is everything. And then over time, I started to experience, losing the vision, losing the faith in where you're going, and then having to pull myself back, and then finding another spark. Like, okay, you know what? I'm just putting myself into this, and all of a sudden, life starts to magically transform, and then you fall, and then you learn, and then you go again, and okay, that's it. And then everything transforms, and I saw how many times it would happen, like on a dime. I'd go one way, and then I'd let something get in the, oh, somebody said I'm a dummy, or oh, this little bad thing is going is or this little thing is going wrong or whatever, and I would just see how it would steamroll until I'm like, oh, I'm back at the bottom of this hole again. Why? How did I get here? It's because I forgot the lesson. So how do I get out of it? Okay, well, pick something like, and again, I mean, I'm talking through it from the other side of it now, but I just saw so many times how it happened until I understood that it doesn't matter where you are, it only matters how you focus. And and that's why I'm always saying you just got to find something to believe in. You got to find a sense of hope. And to hold on to that hope, you need to believe in yourself. You need to develop that self assurance where you say, you know what, maybe I'm a drug addict, maybe I'm homeless, maybe I'm overweight, maybe I'm whatever. But you know what? I got a dream. I got a dream. I got a vision. And that's all I need. And all I need now is to believe in that vision and believe in myself until it becomes my until everybody sees it. And I just saw over and over and over and over and over again the truth in that until I just never doubted it anymore. And then I just live it. Like I don't have everything I want in my life, but I understand that there's a process. So I don't worry about it. I don't panic. And I understand, like, there's nothing to worry about it. There's nothing to panic about because it's a process. Life is a process. And you and I both know um, that you don't want everything. You don't want everything in your life right now. You just don't. You think you do, but you don't, because then what? Then what are you
I
going to
love
do?
it so much.
You
I
know,
love it so much. People fall into this trap of believing that they want it now. They want all of it yesterday. But if they actually would have gotten it already, what would they do? They
yeah.
would just retire, go to Fiji, sip on some cocktails, look
Yeah.
at the waves for the rest of their lives for 30, 40 years. Like, it's boring as
It's
fuck.
exactly. and 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 again, and I always use this as an example. Like I've been in really good shape, as a bodybuilder or whatever. So I've been ripped and muscular and all these kinds of things. And it's nice for sure. It's nice. But as a guy who's been there and done all that kind of stuff, I would trade looking like at my pinnacle. I would trade looking at my pinnacle for being that skinny kid, like just with a dream any day of the week, because that skinny kid who doesn't have he's not even in the vicinity of what he wants, but has the vision. You'll never experience more joy in your life than having a vision that you believe in and trust in, and are prepared to take the journey. And because every day you get up, you're excited, you see the little steps forward, you're like, you fall, but it's like, oh, I learned something. It's like so exciting. This is what life is supposed to be. And like I remember again, like how awesome it was to be a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, and like, oh, I got 5 pounds stronger on my bench press. I'm so excited. I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer. And that's the way life should be. Like it's like, whatever. Like I'm so lonely. I want a relationship. But you know what? I talked to this person and I was funny and they were laughing. And you know what? I'm feeling better. I'm feeling more confident. You're getting closer, right? You're getting closer because eventually it's the same thing. It's like, so many people, it's like, oh, I'm so lonely. I want to meet somebody. It's like stay in that place of like saying, okay, well, what are the qualities that I have? What do I have that I can promote to somebody? Like, I mean, not promote like you're trying to buy something, but that I can express. I'm kind, I'm funny, I'm engaging, I'm whatever. And let's focus on that right now. Let's focus on that right now, and let's kind of build on that. So then you go out in the world and you're standing in line and you meet somebody and you have a 5 minute conversation, and she or he is laughing and you're laughing, and you walk away and you never see each other again, but you get the feeling of like, wow, I can really, like, wow, what a moment we had. Like, what if that moment lasted like a little bit longer? What if that moment was with somebody that's a little bit more aligned with what I wanted, and you could see yourself in it. You can like, wow, I got this, and then the next time it gets a little bit easier, a little bit more exciting. The next time you do it, and you go on a date, or you even spend a month with this person, or 6 months, but it doesn't work out. But you're getting closer and closer and closer, and then eventually you have it. You have what you wanted, right? But you gotta you have to enjoy the journey of it. You have to enjoy the manifestation of it as it's happening in all the little pieces, the little ways. When you get up in the morning, and after 5 years of going in the mirror and going like, oh man, I look like a piece of garbage. Like I feel like so crappy about myself. But you've been sitting, but for the last week, you've been getting up in the morning and saying, you know what, I may not be the prettiest person, and maybe I'm a little overweight, but you know what, I got a great smile. I got a great smile. And then you go to the mirror and you go, you know what, I do have a great smile. And then you start to feel a little bit better. And it's like, you know what, if I did this, if I put on, oh, I got a nice dress or whatever, I got a nice shirt or I got a nice pair of pants or whatever, that makes me look kind of sharp. I feel sharp. I got a nice smile. Let's see what we can do with this. And then you build on it. And like, oh, I'm going to start eating a little bit better. If I lost 10 pounds, I'd start feeling, now you're getting closer and closer. You're closing the gap. And it's not about being perfect. It's not about being anything more than what you are, except for that belief. Like, it's like, you know what? I'm worthy of what I want. And then it happens. It just is.
I
It just
love it
does.
so much. I love it so much. And what I love about what you just shared is how practical it is, and that it's really just a step-by-step process to kind of talk yourself into feeling better. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be like, oh my God, now I'm the best in the world or something. It just has to be a better feeling thought than you were thinking before. And just accumulating those thoughts makes all the difference. And relating back to what you were talking about when it comes to the smaller experiences versus some kind of destination, like people don't realize that what makes the destination is the accumulation of the smaller memories. And in the moment, like you said, those examples, like, oh, I had an exciting exchange with someone, and like we were laughing and stuff like that. Like those kind of memories are exactly what makes life worth living. Those are the things that we remember when we look back. We remember those moments when we were in the pursuit of something, when we were, like you said, pressing a higher weight on the press or whatever it is. Like we remember those smaller things which might seem like they're small, but actually they're huge. It's just that we don't realize it in the moment. And so what I want to actually also backtrack a little bit, you were talking about role models, and that as a 15-year-old, you didn't have good role models. So you had role models, but they were, you know, acid and drinking and violence, all that kind of stuff. And then you were also mentioning a little bit more about like nobody really cared. So you could have just gone down the hill and nobody would have cared. And I realized that in the journal, you dedicated the journal to your dad. And I have never heard you speak about your dad. And I feel like there is some kind of a story about him and about your relationship with him.
Yeah, I really want to actually, I really would love to talk about my dad because I think a lot of people, it's just, it was a really hard situation. And I did a post not that long ago, maybe a month ago, just thanking my dad or whatever for not killing us. That was kind of how I labeled the post. And what I kind of meant by that was, it was just our situation was a very chaotic situation. It was a very chaotic situation. So I don't want to get into too much detail about it because I don't want to offend anybody, but it it was a very traumatic situation in that my dad was a really good man. He was a very good man from a very good family, a very nice family. But he was put into a situation where he had these two kids who were dealing with their own trauma in a situation they didn't want to be in. I mean, my parents divorced when I was in grade three. My mom took my sister and lived on one side of the town. And I don't know all the details. I know just basically what my dad said, a little bit about just how crazy it was. So my mom like really put him through the ringer, and he had put out so much money toward had to put so much money towards my mom. And he's working, he's trying to support these two kids. We're living in like a literally like a totally mouse infested place where like holes in the wall where me and my brother would have to sit by the toaster oven to keep our hands warm. And it was just a really hard situation. We had to go outside and hopefully push the car to get it started. So we were broke and we were poor. And my brother was so angry. And my dad was working all the time to try to kind of get enough money. So we were basically left on our own a lot, me and my brother. And we lived in a very tough neighborhood. And as I've said, a lot of those guys that we grew up with, they never made it. They got killed, they got shot, they had drug overdoses. Like it was a lot of people that we grew up with. But our home became like a staging place for a meeting place for all these tough, troubled kids. And so our home was chaos. And my dad a lot of time wasn't there, but when he was there, he was in a very harsh situation in that my brother wasn't going to stop. You could not stop my brother. He was so angry. He was so angry. I mean, again, I told a little story about the reason why we left Seattle was because my mom and dad woke up to a cross being burnt on our lawn. And my older brother saw that, he internalized that. And I think so from being a baby, being surrounded by this hate, this like, violent, this rage, he just was so filled with anger. And so anyways, going back to I think had my dad tried to stop the situation, he would have been in a situation he would have been it would have escalated to the point where it's like I don't even want to talk about what would have gone on because I don't think my brother would have just let it go. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I think my brother was that angry and that vicious and that, I mean, again, my brother has become a great friend of mine. In fact, I just talked to him this morning. He's become a great friend because I see the value in our relationship and how harsh it was and how much I suffered at his hands, but it all made me tough. It all made me tough. And he didn't mean to make me suffer by kicking the crap out of me, laughing while him and his friends were booting on me and stuff like that. He just was dealing with his own situation, his own struggle. And I see that and I understand that. And I just kind of almost thank him for that because I'm so tough partly because of that. But the situation with my dad was um, was just it was just crazy because my dad could have stopped. Here, I'll give you an example. So one time my brother and I got into a fight, and my brother ran into the bathroom and he's laughing. And I'm like pounding on the door. We fought all the time, pounding on the door. He opened the door suddenly and he had hiking boots in the bathroom. Opens the door, and boom, he kicks me in the stomach. He kicks me in the stomach with these hiking boots, and I hit the ground. Like I hit the ground, I couldn't breathe, and he stomped on my head, boom, on the ground, and like like almost like curb stomped me, right? Jump, boom, he stomped on my head. And so my head, my nose was broken, I couldn't breathe. And then I saw my dad. That was one of the few times my dad got up. And again, my dad was a big guy. And all I seen, I couldn't breathe. And I see my dad, my brother just going off on my dad, pounding my dad, knees and hands and this and that. And he wouldn't stop. And so my dad, what's my dad gonna do? Kill him? Do you know what I'm saying? So basically he tried to stop my brother, he tried to shield him, and eventually my brother just kind of just walked away after just pounding and kneeing and kicking my dad trying to shield him. But 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 that would have gone on every day until somebody died. And I think my dad understood that. So my dad understood that I want to help my son. I want to help Ben. I want to protect him, but at what cost, right? Like where somebody has to die.
Hmm. So what happened? Did he leave?
Did like sorry, what happened with what?
So what was his decision then when as a, dad who wants to protect Ben?
In that particular situation or just
Well,
in
in general,
general?
in general.
In general, what happened, the whole process was that um again, my when I was 15 I started lifting weights. So again, our house was crazy, right? But I started lifting weights and I had a sense of hope. So then I was always at the gym, and I was always like, I really wasn't home that much. And when I was home, I would just go into my bedroom and I'd read magazines. And around that time my brother got a girlfriend. So I was in grade 10, he was in grade 12, and he got a girlfriend. He's very smart. So he was studying, he was graduating, he was getting ready to graduate and go to university. So we basically almost on a dime when I was 15. Once I started going into my bedroom and just being at the gym all the time, and never really, if I was at home, I was basically in my bedroom just reading muscle magazines. Our paths just stopped crossing, right? And again, I think about that because you talk about the law of attraction. My whole life, from the time I was just able to walk, I was fighting with my brother. We were fighting, like, and all the time it was crazy, like, and I had everybody. It's just, I don't want to go into all the details, but it was crazy all the way up until I was 15. And I made this decision that, you know what, I'm going to dedicate myself to bodybuilding. I'm going to be the best I can. And this is how I'm going to turn my life around. And then our paths just almost like that just stopped crossing. Our paths just stopped crossing. And it's like we're in the same house, we're in the same environment, we're our bedrooms, we lived in this little dinky house with like a little wicker sliding door between our bedrooms. And so anytime he wanted to, he could have come in my bedroom, or I could have come in there just kicking in. You don't even have to kick in, you just push and you would have caved in. But all of a sudden our vibrational, our connection was we didn't have one, right? I was a bodybuilder, he was with his girlfriend, and just all of a sudden it was just like we just didn't connect anymore. So we
That's
just,
so fascinating. It's literally like you changed dimension. Like literally you
yeah,
changed
yeah,
reality and suddenly you were like, okay, we are not in the same reality anymore.
yeah. It was like up until that point we'd be fighting every day, and we used to, like, we'd have all these, like, everything was fighting. I fought almost every day from the time I could walk until I was 15 with my brother and with his friends and with all these group of kids that would be in our house, just fighting, 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 fighting. And then all of a sudden at 15, it's just like our paths just never crossed, right? And I mean, just passing in the night, basically, right? And then, and so
So what
that
happened
that's
with the dad?
in what way?
I don't know. I'm still curious about the dad
Well,
because the
my
story was about the dad.
Well, my dad and my brother basically lived together for their whole life. My dad's like until my dad died, right? And my
Mm.
dad died 2019 when COVID started, right? And but my brother and my dad had a funny relationship, right? Because again, my dad's a loving guy, and my brother loved my dad in his own kind of strange way. So my brother always lived with my dad when we were young because my dad paid rent and all that kind of stuff. We didn't own our home; we rented, and then my brother got older, and him and my dad shared a larger place because my brother had a daughter also when he was 20. So my dad would kind of help raise his daughter, and they lived together. And then eventually my brother bought a house, and then my he lived in the upper levels, and he had it kept my dad lived in the lower level, the ground level, the basement level. And then eventually my dad had to go to a care home. So they basically lived together their whole as long as my dad was alive, he lived with my brother, right? But in different capacities, right? So when at the end, my brother was just paying for everything because my dad wasn't working, he was getting dementia and everything. So at one point, my dad protected, as a baby, he paid for everything, took care of my brother, and in the end, my brother took care of my dad. It was
Wow.
quite beautiful to see the
That's so
transition
quiet.
because at the end, I remember me and my brother and my dad. My dad was in the care home; he had dementia, but it was quite beautiful, right? It was one of the last. I think it was probably the last time we all saw each other before my dad died, and it was quite sweet because my dad was really not in a good place, but you could see how much he loved us, and you could see how much my brother really loved my dad, and you could see how like me and my brother were joking, hey dad, like oh well, the Smith team's back together, we'll go get into a bar fight, let's do it dad. And we were all joking and laughing. I see my dad was chuckling, and it was just a beautiful thing to see how the transition. But again, my brother and my dad were connected basically as long as my dad was alive, he was connected with my brother, and it just transitioned from in this way.
So may I ask, as you were having such a tricky relationship with your brother growing up, and your dad was kind of, in the middle between the two of you, right? And he was like, what do I do with these kids? What do I do when they fight like this all the time? Did you develop some kind of resentment against your dad that he didn't do much, or he couldn't really do much to resolve it? Or it wasn't a
Well,
thing?
I resented everybody. I was like, well,
Mm.
you know what it was? It was really hard for me because, again, my brother, I might have said this, my brother's dark skinned. He's darker skinned than I am, which is one of the reasons why we had a burning cross on our lawn in Seattle, why we had to leave Seattle when we were young. But he looks Italian, right? Everything about him is Italian except that he's dark skinned. So he was always from my earliest memories are of him calling me a nigger, and it was like so vile. Like it was like he was so angry about it, and then everybody else did it because he did it, right? So to me, I rationalized it, and I saw the roots when I was young, and I realized, oh, I'm a descendant of slaves, and this is '70s, right? So it wasn't really cool to be black in the '70s, and especially a little black kid and surrounded by white people. So this is the way I rationalized it, like, my brother is darker skinned than me, but I guess he's not a nigger because nobody's calling him that, but they're calling me that. So I must be a piece of garbage, and nobody seems to care that I'm being called this every single day and being beat on. And then like little things would happen. Like my brother and I got into a fight. My brother did something, and I chased him all the way to school. Like we lived about 4 blocks. This is elementary school. This is grade five. This was grade five. I chased him all the way to school, and finally he stopped, and we threw down. And right before the bell, like there's a little basketball court outside. We fought and we scrapped, and I ended up losing. I had blood all over, like blood all like spewing all over the place. And the principal came out just as the bell went. And my brother was a great student, right? He was super smart. My brother didn't get punished. I got punished, and not only did I get punished, but my whole class went on a camping trip for like a week or 2 weeks, and the principal's solution, I'm getting beat up every day, and he knows I'm getting beat up every day. And his solution to is like, well, you're a trouble to me. You're a trouble kid, so you're not going camping. And not only are you not going camping, I'm going to put you in the janitor's room. So he put me in the janitor's room, and so that's where I would spend. I spent a week or two just by myself in the janitor's room, and I'd come out for lunch, and I had to stand at his office just 6 inches from the wall, and if I was away from the wall, I'd get punished, and then I had to go back in the janitor's room. So
So that was like jail. You were literally like in jail.
yeah, while the rest of my class was camping, right? So so again, when you're like 11 years old or 10 years old or whatever I was at that age, and you rationalize, okay, nobody cares that I'm getting beat up, nobody cares that I'm getting called a nigger every day, and then when I do get beat up, when I lose, I'm the one, and they just say you're not worth it, so you go away in this janitor's room and don't bother us, right? Like I wasn't given work, I wasn't given homework, nothing. I was just like, they just locked me away. So as a kid, you start to rationalize, I don't matter at all. Nobody cares about me. I don't matter at all. I'm a piece of garbage. So so that was a hard one to deal with, right? Because again, it's like my mom wasn't doing anything. I mean, my mom's solution to all this was like, well, we got to get you, we need to get you passing. We need to get you passing. Like that was my mom's solution. Again, she was quite educated herself. My brother, my sister, my dad, they're all very educated, but I struggle with math and English and things like that. I struggle learning those kind of things. So my mom was always like, well, we need to get your grades up. We need to get you passing. It's like, mom, I'm getting beat up every day. I'm getting like, don't you care? And her, we need to get you passing. So it was just the rationalization was that it just didn't matter, right? So that's so I mean, again, there's so many layers to this, but I think the most important thing, there's just so many layers, right? The most important thing is when I'm talking about the Everyday Guy journal, and I'm talking about the steps, and I'm talking about all the lessons I've learned, and and all the ways that I know for sure people can move out of their own trauma. Trust me, I've had a lot of trauma.
I mean, like every time we speak, I hear some news story about how crazy it was in your childhood and upbringing. So you've been through a lot of trauma, and I feel for all the listeners watching or listening to this conversation, I think anyone can relate to you because anyone was somehow not being seen in some shape or form, in some way by someone, either is by one or both of the parents, grandparents, teachers, friends, whoever, caregivers. You were so unseen. You were just completely kind of dismissed and, in a sense, forgotten for who you really are. And I wonder now, let's go back to the lighter energy. How did you turn it all around? Because, like you said, you've been through a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. And it was tough and it was rough. And really, in so many cases, someone like you could have been completely crushed, but you were not. So, how did you turn it all around?
Well, again, that's one of the things I talk about in the journal, and why I just really want people to embrace this journal and do the prompts or whatever, because for me, I had to find that thing. How do you find self-love when everybody has told you you're a piece of garbage, when people have forgotten about you, when people have taken things away from you, when you've failed and lost in so many ways? Well, you got to find something. And for me, what I found was I'm unbreakable. I'm unbreakable. So that was the biggest shift for me, for my self assurance, and that's when and again, I would put it all together. I put all together the pieces. But for me, it's like I honestly believe, and again, I mean, this is just what I say in my head, but I honestly believe there's not a human being on this planet who's tougher and more resilient than me, because after everything I've gone through, after all my friends, who got killed and shot, and me suffering and going through the things I went through, I have this beautiful relationship with my daughter. I have this beautiful relationship with my wife. I'm a kind, loving, gentle person. I don't carry my trauma around with me. I don't, I mean, you and I are talking, but I'm not a guy who's like, oh, I went through a lot of trauma. I've really suffered. I've got a lot of pain. I'm not that guy. I'm always happy. I'm always looking on the bright side. I don't carry my trauma with me. And so in that way, I feel like you'd have to travel a long, long way across this planet to find somebody who's as sweet and kind and gentle and genuinely as loving as I am after all the things I've been through. And so that for me is one of the biggest turning points for me, was realizing, you know what? You could say whatever you want about me, and I could fail. I could do whatever, and no matter what goes on in this life, I know I'm unbreakable, and that's going to carry me for the rest of my life. And once I started to understand that as my source of self acceptance, is not because I'm pretty, or not because I'm not that I'm pretty, but not because I have a great body or a nice body, or not because I'm this or that or this or that. I'm unbreakable. Nobody can take that away from me. It doesn't depend on anything that's going on around me. It doesn't depend on like anybody else's approval. I know it. And I will always have that till the day I die. I will always know how tough I really am, how resilient I am. So it doesn't matter what goes on in the world, because now I'm grounded to something that I know so securely about myself and I love so much. And I wouldn't trade anything for that feeling. And that's what I try to get everybody to understand. Find that thing. And for somebody, it might be, um, just that loving quality. For somebody like yourself, you're a young person, but you have this incredible wisdom. You have this incredible spiritual awareness. Like nobody can take that away from you. So that's one of those things that can ground you into a self assurance that is just like I don't know exactly what your age is, but I'm in I'm a young person. I'm in my 30s, and and wow, I'm so far ahead of the game. Why? Because I have an intelligent, a connection with God. I have a connection with the universe. Nobody can take that away from you. That's how anybody builds their self-assurance. Find those things that you own so much that nobody can take away from you and isn't dependent on anything that's going on around you. And now you got a foundation that you can build all your happiness upon, because no matter what goes on in the world, whether it's COVID and lockdown, whether it's whatever, like the little challenges, day-to-day challenges, your foundation is, yeah, but you know what? I'm connected to, in your case, like I'm just using this as an example. I don't know if this is true, but understand from my perspective, yeah, but I'm connected to a source that's so much higher than all of this stuff. I'm connected to God or source energy. And so whatever else goes on, that's my foundation, right? So I can always count on being happy if I ground back to that foundation of God that's within me, that I'm connected to.
I love that so much. And yesterday I was talking about exactly that in my intimate talks. I just launched an audio series on a Telegram group where I just drop in spontaneously and I drop an audio chat just, while living life. I feel inspired. And I was talking about creating a new baseline, a baseline from which we live. And what you're talking about here is exactly that. So instead of living from a lower baseline of suffering and something is missing and something is wrong with me, or I'm broken, or I'm not loved, and and stuff like that, now you have created a new baseline, which is like, yes, I have access to something bigger, higher, deeper, to the love that is unconditional, and I can choose that. And that is such a beautiful way also to wrap this conversation, because I feel like you said, you've been through so much in life, and yet it's just a matter of decision. Essentially, it was just realizing that, wait a second, I can decide. I will no longer allow other people determine who I am and how I feel. I decide how I feel and who I am. And that's the power that we all have. We just A lot of people don't realize that. So just saying that, I would love to ask you where people can find you and where can they find you, find the journal that you just launched and released to the world, uh, and what do you offer?
Well, we offer so the journal you can find it on Kindle is Everyday Guy, the Everyday Guy Interactive Journal, and we're at the Goliath Foundation. I'm at everydayguy.life. Um, so hopefully there'll be I can give some clicks or whatever. But that's where people can find me. I'm Everyday Guy, everydayguy.life, the Goliath Foundation still. And the Everyday Guy Journal, interactive journal is on Kindle, so you can go there. But the one thing I just want to say as far as wrapping this up, it is a journal. It's like you said, it's an easy read. It's such an easy read. But I gave some key points. I gave a little bit of my own experience. I gave a nugget of information that kind of hopefully wraps it up. And then I gave the journal prompts. So the key that I want people to understand if they listen to this or if they get that is do the journal prompts, like continue to journal because it doesn't matter what I say and it doesn't matter what anybody says. You need to find the answers for yourself. And I think the only way you can really do it is if you sit in the thought and the question, like, what do I love about myself? What makes me feel good about myself? And journaling is such a great way to stay focused on that. Like you pen to paper and just like, well, I love this, and this is why I love this, and this is how I experience this. Whereas if you just think about it and you're not used to it, you're gonna be like, well, I love how good looking I am, or well, like whatever it is you say. I love oh, but so and so is also really good. In fact, they're a lot better looking than me. I wish I was better. Like you know what I mean? You can easily go down a rabbit hole, right? But when you're journaling, it's like you can stay focused, right? So that's why I think it's just that's the thing I love the most about this interactive journal is that you can go to the podcast, you can click on the QR codes and go to the podcast, and you can get these little prompts that guide you to really stay focused on what it is you're doing. Why do I love myself? What do I need to do to move forward? How can I experience joy in this moment? How can I make the best of this situation? These are the kinds of things that we ask you to discover with the journal so that you can take control of your life.
I love that so much. You're such an inspiration to me and for the rest of the world, to all the people listening and to everyone. Thank you so much for
Wow.
being here, for taking the time. And I'm very curious what's gonna happen in the future. What kind of amazing journals and teachings and workshops are you going to create moving forward?
Oh man, there's so much exciting stuff going on. I look forward to seeing the same with you because I feel the exact same about you. You and I are together.
We are. Really, indeed. Thank you so much. Ciao,
Thank
ciao.
you. Mwah.